There we go. 3, 2, 1.
And welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for one of our other monthly webinars. Today we have Jeremy Likness, senior consultant from Wintellect, and still a silver MVP, going through Windows 8, the architecture around building applications for Windows 8. Before I hand over to Jeremy, I just want to get a few housekeeping chores out of the way. The first one is thanking our primary sponsors, Telerik and Pluralsight, and for the Wintellect and LIDNUG event range or series. We have Sync Fusion, who's giving us some fantastic support. Also today, for those that have registered and have attended, there will be in the draw for a $499 virtual webinar by Wintellect, who of course Jeremy Likness works for as well. Upcoming events, we have more LIDNUG and Wintellect coming up on July the 24th. John Garr is going to be doing part 1 of his series, Putting the Cloud in Your Pocket. That's a 2-part series, and he'll be back in later on in the year. On August the 10th, we have Scott Guthrie coming back in with his open Q&A. I'm sure many people have tons of questions to ask him regarding the development around the Azure platform. This is Scott's 14th event for us, and I'm pretty sure we're getting close to a user group record. Then we have Jeffrey Richter coming back for his second time on August 15 with his log-free thread synchronization, another LIDNUG and Wintellect event. For more of our events, go to lidnugevents.eventbrite.com and to register for the next events. Also, if you're not a LIDNUG member, know that there's a thriving .NET community, very engaged on LinkedIn. That's on linkedin.com/groups, and that's group ID 43315. You can also visit our website, lidnug.org, and also know that we are currently in the phase of redesigning LIDNUG, and the surprise, which many will notice when they go there pretty soon, is that we are moving over to a Metro design. If you want to keep up to date with what upcoming events we have, you can subscribe to our calendar at bit.ly LIDNUG_RSS. You can also follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/LIDNUG, and facebook.com/LIDNUG. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us at info@lidnug.org. A whole group of managers are available to answer any questions you have. Also, the LIDNUG team, Invar Gasset, Brian Madsen, Peter Shaw, Azad Atal, Will Kelly, and Dan Weigand, and some of our unsung heroes, which is our moderators, Yukis Pang, David Haney, Raymond Reyes, and Isaac Abraham. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Jeremy. Jeremy, thank you very much. This is your second in a row here with LIDNUG, and thank you for coming back again.
Absolutely, man. I had fun last time, so hopefully we'll have just as much fun this time. Let me swap over to my slideshow and just confirm you can see that we are indeed talking about A Tale of Two Stacks. Is that pulling up for you?
It is indeed.
Fantastic. All right, well, let's get started. First, I'll just share a little bit about myself. You can see my email. Feel free to reach out and ping me at any time. And my very creative Twitter handle for my name, Jeremy Likness. The Twitter handle is @JeremyLikness. I'm a project manager and consultant with Wintellect. And in a nutshell, it means I deal a lot with code, whether it's hands-on in the trenches coding or dealing with projects and managing code projects. And interestingly enough, we've had quite a few Windows 8 projects come through the pipeline, so having a lot of fun with that. I am working on a Windows 8 book specifically focused on Windows 8 Metro applications, just sharing this to give two links, one for updates to Windows 8. You can follow those at the link you see there, on.fb.me. That's for on Facebook. It's a Facebook page, as well as the source code. So the source code is available irregardless of whether or not you purchase the book. It's open to the public, and you can pull that down and see some various examples. So this is a Wintellect series, and I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about what we do. We are a consulting, training, design, and debugging firm. We have some other presenters that you may recognize here. Jeffrey Richter is coming on. I believe Jeff Procyse and John Robbins have both done talks, but I think they're fairly well known in the .NET community. Their names speak for themselves, and they are the founders of our company. And what we focus on is solutions that are software-based, very heavily on the Microsoft stack. And if you want to find out more about Wintellect, we've got our URL in the lower right corner, wintellect.com. We also have several courses and events. Just want to make you aware of. You can visit these short URLs. The Wintellect events has all of our upcoming, including this series that we're doing with the LinkedIn.net users group. We also have a major conference called DevScovery that takes place in Houston. This is a 3-day session that's not like an ordinary conference because it's really hands-on training by some of the experts that I've spoken about. So it's less talks about things and more direct training for various topics related to Windows. And again, you can follow that link. I say Windows, Microsoft Stack, etc. Follow that link to find out more details and see what's going on there. And finally, some partner offers. Just want to make sure you know that as part of attending this, you can be entered to win a virtual training course. And that is a very powerful session. You can see some of the different courses when you get the deck. The link there will be active. These are sessions you will learn something new. When you walk in, you'll walk away with new information. They're a $500 almost value, $1 shy. And a winner of one of these virtual trainings will be announced at the end of this session. And in addition, I'll be giving you a link to the 600, actually more than 600 Metro-style icons, which is very fitting since we're talking about the Metro platform. So let's cover what I'm going to dive into. This is really focused on what I call the dual personality of Windows 8. And one of the reasons why I felt we needed to talk about this is I think there's a lot of confusion and misconception out there from people who haven't been hands-on with the platform. What I mean by that is Windows on traditional laptops and desktop devices, it's a little bit different when you're talking about a low-powered ARM device. But when we're talking about the traditional Intel x86, x64, etc., it really has two personalities. And there's what we'll call the desktop or the blue stack, and I'll explain why I call it the blue stack in a moment. And then there's the Metro and the green stack. And I think there's a perception that the desktop stack is really just Windows 7, and then we have this new Metro interface sitting on top of it. And that couldn't be farther from the truth, and there's some great backwards compatibility through that desktop interface. And I'll give you a great example. The demo that I'm running this off of, the presentation and the demos you'll see, I'm going to pull up what's called a charms bar, and I'm going to do a search and jump into my system information. And what you'll see is we are running on a Samsung Series 7 slate. So this is a Samsung Series 7 that I've installed Windows 8 on. And I'm getting ready to go on a flight, and for that flight, I've downloaded a movie to watch through Amazon. Has a program called Unbox, where they play full-screen videos. And despite the fact that it's not released specifically for Windows 8, it will run fine. It'll stream the full video. I get a great battery life, and I can watch that. So there's great backwards compatibility, but there's a lot of depth and change to that desktop experience. So what I'm going to do is introduce you to some of those changes so you can see underneath the hood what's actually happened with the desktop stack. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Metro stack so we can compare and contrast those. And then we'll wrap up and open it up for questions as well as announce our winner for the virtual training. So let's talk about this dual personality. What you're seeing on the slide right now is a screenshot of what Windows 8 looks like on an x86 or x64 architecture with 2 monitors. So this is an extended display. And on the left side, we have this new Windows 8 Metro interface, and on the right side, we have something that looks very similar to what the Windows 7 desktop was. And you'll notice, too, the default themes for these are green and blue, interestingly enough. But these are 2 different environments, and they have 2 distinct personalities. And so this is a deck that was shown during the build event back in September of 2011. And when Windows 8 was first introduced, we sort of got a fire hose of all the features and functionality. Now, I know, being a Silverlight MVP, one of the most exciting announcements for me was that tiny little SL that you can see in the lower right-hand corner. Let's see if I can highlight it for you down here. So this little section here told us that, hey, we've still got Silverlight support going forward on these applications. So that's pretty neat, and we're pretty happy about that. However, we've got this concept here of Metro-style applications. So this is a new stack. It's a new set of services and layers. You see that Windows runtime set of APIs. So this is completely brand new. It's not something that will run on Windows 7, and it's not an add-on. And that's one thing that's important for people to understand. This isn't just a small engine, sort of like maybe a Silverlight install or a .NET install that sits on top of it. Many of these APIs are integrated directly into the underlying operating system. And then we move past that, and we've got the concept of desktop applications. And this is the supported stack that will allow you to run existing applications and move forward some of the experiences you're used to. But what's interesting is this has gone through several enhancements, and that's what we're going to cover and dive into. So let's take a look at the desktop stack to start out with, because I think this is what people tend to know the least about and don't realize there have been just substantial improvements throughout. And so some features of this stack include USB 3.0 support, file management improvements, Windows Explorer enhancements, so on and so forth. We'll go into this list in greater detail, but you can see there are a number of improvements that are there on that desktop stack side. So let's start with the USB 3.0 support. What exactly does that mean? So USB 3 is about 10 times faster than USB 2.0, the old standard. So that's pretty significant. Now there's a theoretical limit of 5 gigabytes per second. However, in practice, a number of factors combine to make the actual throughput probably less than that, but still very significant. What this means is typical high-definition videos can be copied in about less than 30 seconds. And so what I'm going to show you here is 2 dialogues. And this is an example of a copy operation, one that was done with USB 2.0 from a solid-state drive, and one that was done with USB 3.0. And the top one, USB 2.0, has an estimated 10 seconds remaining. It's going about 32 megabytes per second. If you look at the bottom screen, it's moving so fast that it hasn't even calculated how much time is remaining, and it's almost done. It's going through a pretty good clip, about 6 times faster than the USB 2 example. Now, in addition to that type of improvement, the file management system itself has been enhanced. One of those enhancements is this consolidated copy experience, and I'm going to show what that means, but I've run into this several times where I've got several items to copy, whether it's to a thumb drive or maybe it's across machines. And what I end up doing if I have multiple things to copy is I start these copy operations, and then I have 5 dialog boxes to track down, and it's like a race of which progress bar is going to finish first. This has been consolidated, and we'll show you how that's useful in a minute. We've also got a pause, resume, and stop, so it's no longer just cancel the copy operation. You can actually pause and resume a copy operation. You get a real-time throughput graph, so you can see how that copy operation is performing through time. And there's improved conflict resolution. So what this means is if I'm copying a chunk of folders to a similar directory structure and I have existing files, I've several ways that I can manage conflicts, whether it's overriding or having it copy and replace and rename and so forth. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these file management improvements that are down at the desktop level. So what I'm going to do is pop out of my PowerPoint here. And go down to the file system and jump into my downloads folder. So what you're going to see in this downloads folder is a couple of very large files. So I'm just going to highlight this and do a copy, and I'm just going to copy it to the same folder. So what you're going to see right away is this new dialog pop up, and I'm going to go ahead and pause it. But what I got was this detailed dialog. I know how many items it's copying, and I've also got a graph showing me the performance and the throughput. And as you can see, I can actually pause that copy operation. So what I'm going to do now is come back and pick these same three files. I'm going to copy them again. So I'm just going to do copy and paste. And you can see now I've consolidated my copy operation. So I can let them both go. And what you're going to see is my throughput's going to drop fairly dramatically just because I've got the two operations running side by side. What I can do is come down and pause. Well, let's pause the bottom one. And what you should see is this top one will slowly improve throughput now because obviously it has more cycles, more disk, etc. So then I can pause this one and I can cancel both of these operations. So now I'm just completely out of it, and if we give a moment for this to refresh, you'll see that my aborted copy attempts are gone. So that's the example of that improved experience with file management. Now, the file copy experience hasn't only changed, but Windows Explorer itself has changed. And a few of these enhancements are pretty significant. So what you're looking at right now is what you would have seen in Windows in 1985. And this was called MS-DOS Executive, and it was a very early version of this concept of a windowed environment. With Windows 3, we advanced a little bit. We got this nice tree view and some icons and so on and so forth. And then this is the Windows XP view, which up until just a few weeks ago was probably the most common and popular view. I believe the statistics are showing a strong trend towards Windows 7 now. So beyond that, in Windows 8, what improvements and enhancements have happened down at that Windows Explorer level? Well, the first thing that's pretty significant is this integration of the ribbon UI. And this has been extended, and I'm going to show you how that's happened. But the ribbon UI is a concept that was introduced through Office, and many people are familiar with that, with the latest versions of Office, how you've got a ribbon across the top and you have tabs of functionality and grouped actions. And I remember when we first made the switch to this UI, it caused a lot of angst and grief because it just wasn't what we were used to, but now, several versions later, it just feels natural, and it's a way of organizing things together. The common tabs that you're going to see in the Windows Explorer are these Home, Share, and View tabs, and I'll explain what those do when we drop down. There's also an enhanced file menu, and there's a built-in contextual search. So all of these are features to help enhance that experience of driving through the file system. And then we've got library tools. This is one of my favorite features. I use libraries to organize my presentations, my documents, etc. And what libraries do is they're sort of, I call it an Uber folder. So you can group locations on your hard drive together as a library, and then you can tag that library as a content type. So maybe this has pictures or music or documents, and then you can perform operations that are specific to that. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and pop out here and go down into my documents library. And what I want to draw your attention to is here at the top, you'll see my that's great, my ribbon control. And so I'm defaulting on the home tag, and if let's select this, and we got a preview there, we'll take that off. Let's take this, there's no preview. But you can see these light up. I can copy, I can paste, I can move to, and that gives me a drop down of places, rename. So all of my functionalities here. Now, you may wonder, you know, isn't it just as easy to right-click and do this and that? But if you think about this on a tablet or a slate, being able to tap this item to select it and then tap one of these items is a very streamlined experience compared to trying to emulate a mouse click or a right click or a double click and so forth. So we've got a share tab, and the share tab is going to give me ways to email the item, zip it up, print it, fax it, and sharing settings. So how do I share it on the network, for example? The view tab is one of my favorite tabs now because it's very easy to switch how you look at the content. Right now I've got a preview pane, and you can see this template for writing books has shown up in the right pane. I can change that to a details pane, and what that's going to give me is my standard authors, tags, etc., and I can actually click on here and edit it. Now I can hover over these items to change the type of view. So extra large icons, titles, content, list. You can see the different views, and this is nice because you can preview it before you jump into it. And then finally you see this library tools. Now this is context sensitive. In other words, if I go to my downloads folder, you see it goes away. I get the home, share, and view. If I come back to my documents folder, I get these library tools. So what can I do here? Well, I can manage what locations are included in that library. I can set the default save location if I save something directly to that library. I can also control how it appears in my navigation pane. You can see I've got quite a few items on here, so maybe I want to take this out to unclutter that menu, and you can see now there's just music, pictures, and videos. Let's go ahead and show it back, and then it appears in that pane, and I can navigate here. Now let's pop into the pictures. When I go into pictures, what happens is I get a new tab here in Explorer called Picture Tools. Picture Tools will allow me to step into a slideshow, so I can step through and show the different pictures that are on my desktop. That's my Twitter avatar. Some people may recall this screen. I like to use it as my desktop background to confuse people when they see my tablet. And we'll move through a couple other screens, so on and so forth. So let's escape out of that. But that was a slideshow just straight through Windows Explorer. If I tap on an item, you can see I've got all my details. You can tell that this picture was actually shot a couple years ago, but then I can switch to my preview pane and just see a preview of the picture. I can also do things like set it as the background, rotate it, etc. So you can see this context in the ribbon switches based on the type of content, including content like music. So if we go into music, let's maybe go into Bush and pick some songs here. So now what I can do is go into my music tools. I can play everything that's in this folder. I can highlight an item, get a preview there. If I want to come back to the view, again, I can get the details instead. And I can play that item or even add it to a playlist. So pretty rich functionality that's context-specific that's been enhanced with this Explorer interface. So let's pop back here and talk about some other support that you'll find in the file system. Now, if you've dealt with ISO files, which I'm sure you have, these are the files that make it convenient to distribute images, for example, over the web so that you can burn them to CD. You've probably had to pull down some third-party utilities or extensions, etc., to manage these types of files. So you've got the ISO file for optical storage, and you've got the VHD, which is a virtual hard drive. That is a format popularized by the virtual PC. That's Microsoft's virtual offering. However, it's more flexible than that. You can literally update your operating system to boot from a virtual hard drive. So it's more than just a virtual PC type of file system. It can be used as a primary file system that you can boot to. Now, in Windows 8, ISO files will mount with a double click or tap. And they also provide a virtual eject. So what this means is no more third-party utilities. You can just take that file, mount it directly, and navigate. With virtual hard drives, these will appear as a new hard drive when you mount them. And what it becomes is really the same as any other file storage. In other words, you get a hard drive that you can format, you can add files to, you can copy files from. So there's really rich functionality, and this is all out of the box, built in. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to go back to my downloads folder. I'm going to go into my view, and we'll change it to, let's say, large icons. So with large icons, what you can see is my ISO is showing an optical image, and my VHD is showing a hard drive. So let's start with the ISO, and what we're going to do is if you look over in the left-hand side, you'll see I have my computer, I have a C drive, and then I have this Jeremy Likness laptop connection. So what I'm going to do is double-click this ISO. What happens is I open it up automatically, I come inside, and I can see the different files here. If you look at my navigation, I've got a new DVD drive. So it's created a virtual drive, and this is a drive that I can launch, load, and deal with, just as if I had taken the effort to burn a DVD and mount it into my system. You'll also notice that now I have this context-specific set of tools for the drive. Now, a lot of these items are grayed out because these optical drives are read-only. So I can't format it, I can't optimize it, etc. But what I can do is go ahead and eject it. And when that virtual disk is ejected, you'll see I'm rejected because I was inside that library and I can no longer do anything there. So let's come back here, and this time double-click on the virtual hard drive. Now, what this is it's a pretty popular image because the favorite pastime of web developers around the world is to make their sites friendly with Internet Explorer 6. So what this particular hard drive does is it gives you a virtual image that allows you to launch Internet Explorer 6 and test your websites in that. You can see when I double-clicked it, I went directly into this file system, and this is really just like another drive. So what does that mean? I can go into Windows, and I can drill into Help, and I can pick one of these help files, and these are Windows XP help files, by the way. That's what the image is. And let's just pull up Daytime. And you can see the help file just pops open just as natural as if it was a file on my actual system. You'll also notice that I can come back into my downloads directory. And if I come into this disk image and look at my tools, in my tools, you're going to see this mount and burn. So let's do a mount. And you see this D drive appeared on this side. If I right-click on that D drive, I've got the option to turn on BitLocker, open autoplay, basically anything I would see with an ordinary hard drive I've got here with this virtual hard disk image. And again, all of this is perfectly native to the system. Let's go ahead and bounce out, and let's just right-click and eject, and then it unmounts that drive for me, piece of cake. So again, what you've seen is some improvements with how we manipulate, move around files, some improvements with how you interact with Explorer, and then some improvements that just make life easier by being able to pull down different types of images and work with them directly. So another feature that I can't demo here because it would kick me right out of the demo presentation is this concept of fast boot. And I can tell you this is one of my favorite features of Windows 8. It proves, in a sense, that Windows 8 is not just a Windows 7 with a Metro-style interface on it, because you can see, touch, and feel this boot. Now with my slate, from a complete shutdown to turning on the power button and being ready to log in is literally a few seconds. I love it. With my laptop, I've learned to dread booting into my Windows 7 image. I have a dual boot because the Windows 8 takes seconds, not minutes, which the Windows 7 definitely takes minutes. So it's an incredibly fast boot, even when I'm on a slower non-solid state disk drive. The way that this works, and I'm not going to get too deep into the details because there's some blog posts you can look at on the Windows 8 team blog online, but they've moved the shutdown functionality to more of a hibernation task. So shutting down basically creates an image in this Hyper file of what your system looks like, and it takes about 3/4 of your system RAM. So that is something to note. If you've got 4 gigs of RAM, you're probably going to look at a 3 gig file. But what that enables is for this image to be swapped in incredibly fast. And so this is an image from that blog I was referring to. But what you see here is in the cold boot scenario, you've got this system initialization that happens. And this is where drivers are individually loaded. There's some detection, what hardware is installed. Okay, let me pull this, let me pull that, let me spin up services, etc. And then let's show the login screen, and in the background we sort of get that user session ready. Well, with the Windows 8 Fast Startup, most of that it happens through that Hyper file read. So what happens is the first time you install your system, those driver services, etc., are set up, and then they're hibernated, so they're pulled in right away. Now, there still is a driver initialization phase, and that allows it to pick up changes to your device drivers. But you'll find, for the most part, that boot just happens incredibly quickly. The other improvements are with Malware Protection, and these are platform changes, and this is significant because it's not something you can see, touch, or feel, but it's going on underneath the surface. There's a feature called Address Space Layout Randomization that basically makes it harder for attackers to exploit things like buffer overflows and locate segments of memory. The Windows kernel itself has changed how it handles different user and kernel modes, and this is a security feature down at the kernel level. There's integrity checks, and so what this means is blocks of memory, if they become corrupted, it has a much better chance of understanding that something's changed and responding to it. And then Internet Explorer is significant because the version was built specifically on top of these enhanced features. You've got an integrated version of Windows Defender that provides protection against viruses, Trojans, and malware. And then you've got the Smart Screen Filter, and what the Smart Screen Filter does is when you download items, it goes out to an online database and compares that against other activity and basically provides warnings and issues for content that may be potentially unsafe. Let's talk about the new Task Manager. I think this is key, and you'll probably be using this a lot when you're building applications, whether they're desktop-focused or Metro-focused. So there's a great post that talks about how the Task Manager was streamlined. And part of that streamlining was to optimize it for the most common scenarios. So what are those scenarios? There's obviously the in-process scenario, and I think anyone who's worked on Windows for any period of time has had some application that you just simply need to go and kill. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is diagnosing performance issues. And the way that it's been optimized to do this is by providing these new features like a heat map, the network and disk counters, being able to group processes together, and then the search and file location. So what I'm going to do is show you how these features work and jump back out to my desktop. So the first thing I'm going to do is pop up the new Task Manager. And what you'll see is in the basic form, when I don't have more details selected, I'm in my scenario that makes it extremely easy to see what's running, and then I can right-click and basically in that task. And I don't want to do this because I'm in the middle of that presentation, but this is the simplified scenario, right? Let's get rid of all the noise, just show me what's running, let me highlight this, and then let me in that task. I can either right-click or click the button. If I ask for more details, I get a heat map. And this heat map is pretty significant because what it provides me with is a list of running applications, and then it gives me these important segments of information about them. So how much CPU is it taking up? How much memory? how much disk access and how much network access. So I want to show you what this looks like when I perform an operation. So let's say that my system's starting to get a little sluggish because something's happening, and I want to use this task manager to troubleshoot it. So let's make sure we've got it to be always on top, which it is. Now let's go back to this folder, and I'm going to switch the view to a details view. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy these items. So we'll do a copy, and we'll drop it down and do a paste. Now as this is copying, what you're going to see over here is I get a heat map that's showing me my disk utilization is starting to go through the roof. And you can see this is highlighted here. You can also see memory's gone up, and you can see various things highlighted. But the key here is that the one application, which is Windows Explorer, that's causing this to happen is brought to the top, and I've got this visual representation exactly of what's going on, so I can jump straight to the problem. When I stop that, you'll see it starts to go down, 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 and eventually this will stabilize. So let me close this out. And let's do a refresh here to make sure our copy operations undid themselves. And for some reason, I always get this one file that likes to stay behind. So that's the heat map for the task manager. And another thing you can see here is if I decide to sort by name, for example, we'll see apps and background processes. So this is the grouping that makes it easier to see what's going on. I've got Windows processes, background processes, so on and so forth. So very easy to organize the content. When I have a process, I can expand that, and I can find any related sub-processes that are hanging off of that. If we go into the Performance tab, you're going to see graphs, and these are thumbnail graphs showing CPU, memory, disk, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth if I had it connected over time, with some pretty detailed information here. Let me just pull this open and make it a little bit larger for you. So we can see what's happening with memory, and of course my Wi-Fi should be through the roof because all of this is happening over Wi-Fi. I've got voice over IP, and I'm projecting the slate, and I happen to be remoting to the slate over a wireless connection as well, so you can see all that happening. Now the app history is significant because it helps you troubleshoot items after the fact. So I've got all these different applications on my system, and I can see a running history over time of what's happened. So I can see I take up a lot of CPU playing music. And I'll tell you what, these slates are great with a little stand to just pull into a room, fire off some music, and let it play in the background while you're doing something. We've got network, so what's taking up network, Internet Explorer, and my mail, calendar, people apps, and I can expand that too to see what those applications are. So that makes sense. And then we've got metered network, tile updates, etc. So who's updating tiles? The mail apps, of course, to show me, hey, you've got this much mail waiting, etc. We've got access to what's in our startup, the users on the system, and you get a breakdown by user, details, which gets you into the processes, and then the various services that are running. So very streamlined task manager experience here. So the Windows update has been improved as well, and I think this is something that you talk to anyone with Windows, and they're going to come in one day and they're going to say one of two things. Either, man, I had that update cycle and it took forever to boot my machine, or, you know, I just wanted to shut down my laptop at the end of the workday and go home, but it started this update cycle and it said I can't close it or power it off, and I was there for 30 minutes waiting for it to update. Now the updates I've noticed have been streamlined on Windows 7, so they don't take quite as long, but in Windows 8 they're further improved. One of the things they've done is they've consolidated the restarts. So instead of restart every single Tuesday when you get hit with all these updates, they're going to be consolidated and not force a restart until this monthly cycle. The other thing you'll get is a notification for upcoming restarts. I think in Windows 7 you've got a shutdown update and shutdown, etc. Well, you get that notification and basically a message that ticks down and says, you know, 3 days, we're going to want you to restart, 2 days, so on and so forth. So you can plan for the updates a lot better. And then you can delay that restart when needed. So you're, hey, I'm closing it, I'm out the door, I want to delay it, just prompt me for it a different time. We've also got improved support on this desktop surface for large disks and sectors, and this is key as drives start to get larger. So there's new and enhanced APIs for coring disk size. Some of the older APIs can even support the numbers coming out of the newer disks. NTFS itself, this is the underlying file system, has been enhanced to handle these larger sectors that are on the larger drives, and the VHD formats are also extended to support these types of sectors. And you can now boot from these disks, and in prior versions you had to boot from a system disk that didn't have the large sector, and then you could access that larger sector as another drive. We've also got a new file system, and this is a very interesting concept. It's called the Resilient File System, and it has a lot of new features built in. Metadata integrity checks. It's got these different ways of managing the structures on disk. It has an enhanced method for updating the disk that ensures integrity, resiliency to corruption, and what we call continued volume availability. So if one drive crashes, you continue to have availability to your information and data. Now, one of the ways to manage this is through this new storage spaces, which I can't demo here because I don't have additional drives set up on my system, but you can literally take sets of drives and pool them and have them participate in this set of spaces that provides this enhanced file system. So very powerful feature. You've got the graphical UEFI boot. Now, this is a standard for firmware, and it changes the traditional BIOS style boot. And one of the things you'll notice when you boot with a Windows 8 system is you actually get a graphical menu, and it's touch friendly, it's mouse friendly, it's keyboard friendly, and there's a lot that goes on behind it. I don't want to give the impression that the only great thing about the new boot is the fact that it's graphical. It improves security significantly, and it also enables the ability to do an advanced boot. So there's a way to set up the Windows system to boot into what's called advanced boot, and then you can come through and troubleshoot and change options, etc. So let me just show you a demo of some of those settings real quickly, and we're just going to hold down the Windows key and hit C to pull up our charms bar, click on Settings or Tab, and go into Change PC Settings. So this brings us into the newer control panel experience, and you can see my nice Commodore 64 background here. Let's go into General, and you'll see a few items, but what's interesting to note is down here, so we've got a couple options here. Now, if I wasn't remoted into my slate, you'd see another option that is the advanced reboot. And all that does is it does a restart, but it pulls up that graphical menu. But you've got some new options, too, that are pretty useful. How many people have spent a weekend basically what we call bricking your laptop? You install things, you build software. Over time, performance starts to get more sluggish. And then you go and you wipe it, you install the factory installed operating system, or a new operating system, and you start to layer things on. Well, here's some new options with Windows 8. One is refreshing your PC without losing your files. So this will do a refresh of the operating system and installed applications, but it won't destroy any of your personal files that you've stored. The other thing you can do is remove everything and reinstall Windows. So a good example of this is you're about to sell your laptop, and you want to get rid of everything so that it's not there, obviously, for someone to pry through when they pick it up. So you can click on this button here, which I'm not going to do in the middle of the demonstration, and you can remove everything and reinstall the OS right there from a simple option. So let's go ahead and see if I can grab the top. If not, I'll just hit Alt F4, close that out, and we'll get back to the presentation. So Windows to Go, this is an exciting concept, and we've got several people at Wintellect who are using this feature. And it essentially allows you to boot and run from a USB drive. And what this means is it's not just carrying a copy of the operating system to install. It is literally booting directly from the USB drive. Highly recommended. that you have a USB 3.0 device for speed and performance. But what this will do is the first time you boot from this USB drive, it'll go through the cycle of sensing the system, figuring out the drivers, installing them, etc. And then it allows you to provide this image copy of Windows. So I can literally take that USB, and we say it's to go because I can plug it into my work desktop if I have one, and I can work. And then when I go home, instead of just having to share files or find some strange way to move what I'm doing, I can literally bring that USB drive, plug it into another machine, and boot to the same image I have. So this is an enterprise feature, but it literally allows you to hand out a keychain that has that image copy of Windows ready to go for a user. And then you can use different devices as the host for booting that Windows into. So here's some of the other features on the desktop side, and then I want to move over to the Metro side. So we've got a reduced memory footprint. We've got support for multiple monitors. Now, Windows 7 has that type of support, but it's been extended in Windows 8. Cool feature that has nothing to do with how well you write or develop code or line of business applications is the fact that it now supports extended desktop. So you can have a super large stretched image and have it stretch across both monitors. In the previous versions, it would just tile or repeat across those. There's a native support for IPv6 because everyone knows we're running out of internet space. I think there was a big amount of public interest in it a few months or maybe longer back. But I think for the most part, unless you're an IT administrator in the midst of this, this has been a pretty transparent process with the IPv6 support. I say how's that for personality because we started out talking about this dual personality, and if nothing else happened over the past 45 minutes, I hope that some of you who aren't as familiar with Windows 8 come away from this realizing that it's not just about that Metro or touch experience. The underlying operating system and that entire desktop experience has been revamped in several significant ways that I think are going to be pretty exciting. I've seen a lot of speculation about the enterprise focusing on Windows 7, jumping from XP straight to Windows 7 and maybe ignoring Windows 8. But I think you'll see some key features hidden within here, the large sector disk support, the mounting and management of ISO and VHD images, and the Windows to go that are impactful in the enterprise and might cause someone to look a little bit more seriously on this because these features come with a great set of backwards compatibility. So now let's talk about the Metro stack, and this is probably the more visible side of the Windows 8 personality. And I just want to cover a few of the features that you may or may not be familiar with that are sort of integrated into that stack and make it unique as well. And you can see the list here. I'll let you take a look at it for a second while I ramble on, and then we'll dive into some of these features and see what they look like firsthand. So the first thing I want to talk about is this Touch First. Now, Touch came integrated with Windows 7. It was part of the OS, but it was definitely not a touch-first system. And if you've basically grabbed a touch-type device and installed a build of Windows 7 that wasn't enhanced by the manufacturer for touch, you can see that there are some nuances with getting around. Well, this is engineered from the ground up in Windows 8, and what you see here is a list of some of the standard Windows 8 gestures. It'll be easier for me to just demo this fusion of touch, keyboard, and mouse. So what I'm going to do is pop over to a sample application I have from my book, and I'm going to run it in a simulator. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm giving this presentation with a keyboard and mouse, but I want to show you some of the touch features that are available. So this is a touch application, and the Windows 8 simulator allows me to emulate a finger touch and even a double finger touch. So you can see some events are firing as I move the mouse around. I'm in mouse mode right now. And I can click down and I can move this image around if I want to. I can take my keyboard and hold down Control and scroll in and out, and I can zoom this. But one thing I can't do with keyboard and mouse is a rotation. Let me go over to the touch mode, and so now we're emulating a finger touch. With this touch mode, I can put my finger on the surface, and I can emulate moving this around. Maybe, maybe not. Let's see what's going on here. So there's an emulation. You see those two touch points coming together. I don't know how well this translates on the live meeting. And then I'm moving the fingers farther apart. And this is all emulating it using my mouse wheel, but that's what would happen with touch. And then we've got this concept of an angular rotation. And so we just simply swivel that around. Now the code for this is extremely simple and straightforward. What I want to do, though, before I stop and drive into the code is I want to bounce back to the start screen. And I want to show you how this support is baked in to be touch first, but still allow for keyboard and mouse. So if I come in with my finger on the start screen, I can take it, hold it down, and I can pan across. So that's how I move back and forth. And then if I want to select something, like let's say I want to select this tile, what I'll do is I'll take it and I'll drag it down slightly. You can see the checkbox there giving me a hint on what's about to happen, and then I release it, and it's selected, and I have these options. And then if I want to take this and maybe pull it down, unselect it, maybe I just want to move it so I can take it and move it around. So all of that's supported. Well, if I switch to mouse and keyboard mode, immediately you'll see I get a scroll bar appear, so I can do the traditional scroll bar. But I can also use my mouse wheel. With my mouse wheel, I can scroll back and forth, so it's an easy way. If I hold down my control key, I can do a pinch and zoom out, quickly move over, and zoom in. You'll see these are grouped as live because these are my featured live tiles. You don't see them in the simulator, but on my application desktop, you'll see those in a moment when we drill in. But any grouping of these tiles, we can select to zoom in, or we can right-click, and let's name this group, and this happens to be my office, and I'm not sure quite what to call it yet. I've seen it referred to, these are 2013, I've seen it referred to as Office 365 and Office 15, but these are the new Office previews. So you saw I just grouped and named that. So that's all done with the keyboard. Same thing, if I want to select this item, I can just right-click and have that same experience that was duplicated with touch. So let's go back to the application, and let's just go ahead and Alt F4 so we can close out of that. We'll stop debugging. But I just wanted to show, from the sense of this being touch first, how in the source code we literally have an event called double tap that we can register for, or tapped, or holding, so on and so forth. And what happens is, instead of dealing with a finger or a mouse or a stylus, we can deal with a pointer, and Windows will provide us information about that pointer as a single entity. And we don't have to worry about the nuances of, am I in touch mode or not? Now, if there's multiple touches happening, then obviously we need to go and look and see those different touch points. But for the basic pointer interactions, tap and hold, click and drag, double click, etc., these are all coalesced into single events. This is what it took to basically perform the rotation. I simply have an event that fires whenever a manipulation happens, and I can use pinch and zoom to scale it, I can use a translation to move it, and I can use a rotation to rotate it. These 5 lines of code are what allowed me to zoom in, zoom out, and spin those graphics that you saw in that demonstration. So that's the example of how this is a touch-first environment. So the next thing we'll talk about is the start screen. And I told you when we were in the simulator that the tiles weren't active and live. So the biggest difference, and I've talked about this in the past, but to me this is significant because I've seen a lot of angst and grief over the loss of the start menu. And I understand the use and the pattern, and it's been around for quite a long time. But to me, an icon, just for the sake of tapping on that icon and launching an application, is far less useful than something like this, where I can literally, at a glance, hop into my live start screen and see things going on. So you can see I've got my local weather forecast here. I've got some recent blog posts from Wintellect here. Updates from a software package that allows me to see constellations, etc. It's all at a glance, and if I've got the information I need here, great. If not, then I'll click into it, and I'll actually navigate into the application and take advantage of it. So it's a pretty powerful new start screen experience. And we just did that demo. I'm going to save searching for a minute because I've got a slide for that. But the start screen is completely new, but it's very easy to swap in and out of. I don't think you've seen me have any problem during this demo to go to the desktop here. We've got a folder open. Let's close it. Now I've got PowerPoint open. Hey, I want to go to the start menu. Boom. I'm in the start menu. If I want to go back, I just tap the same button again, and I'm able to navigate. So Internet Explorer 10 comes with some significant improvements as well, and I'm talking about the version that's embedded in the Metro side. And here you can see a screenshot, but I wanted to show you a couple demos just about that experience to show you how it's changed. And the engine that drives Internet Explorer, there's two pieces to that. There's a codename Trident that's used for the rendering of the web content, and there's a codename Chakra, which is used for the JavaScript interpretation. These are the same engines used by Metro applications that are built with HTML and JavaScript. It's the same core engine, but just a different form set and feature functionality. So here I've got basically all of the website Chrome out of my way. Sure, I can come down here and navigate to a website if I want to, and I've got some nice tips and hints for where I might want to jump to. But once I navigate, pretty much gets out of my way and allows me to go front and center. Now if I want to, I can come here, simply tap this little plus, open a new window. Let's go to Windows 8 application. So this is the website that has the source code for the book. So that comes into play. Again, I can simply right-click, pop back to my Bing tab, etc. But this also has some interesting interfaces with the actual Metro experience. And to show that, I'm going to go to my blog, which is hosted just on Google Blogger. But what I've done is in this blog, I've provided some metadata tags, and we can basically, if we right-click, use this wrench, we can view it on the desktop. And this will pop me down to the desktop. And the desktop version supports advanced plugins and some more functionality. Now I'm on the desktop. I'm not within Metro. But I've got the familiar right-click and view source. And here I can see all my meta information at the top. And you'll see I've got a meta content, Windows 8 posts, actions, etc., application tasks, so on and so forth. What I've done is I've used these meta tags to give the Metro system more information about my website. So let me close this, and let me go back into Internet Explorer. And I'm going to come down here to this little pin button. You can see I can click on it, and I've got this pin to start option. So I'm just going to click on the pin to start. By doing that, because of that metadata information that I've provided, when I pop back to my start screen and scroll all the way to the end where it gets stacked on, you can see I've got a nice title for what the website is. I've chosen my avatar as the icon, and if I click on that, it's going to go directly to the page. And so that's a powerful way. Now, the other thing to note is since I've launched this page directly from the Metro experience, you'll notice a new icon has appeared. And this gives me a home to go to the main home page, and then a Windows 8 post. So let's click on that Windows 8 post, and you'll see the website itself updates and gives me the label of Windows 8 posts. So this is a pretty interesting set of functionality that allows you to expose a traditional web page. You can pull this up on a Macintosh, on your smartphone, whatever. But when you're running it from within the Metro environment, you get this enhanced experience and interactivity with it. So the landscape and portrait's significant because we know that there's different form factors and different types of orientation changes. And what's unique about the Metro platform is that it automatically senses these types of changes, and the platform supports identifying them from your application and responding to them. So I want to just give you this demo quickly of the Wintellect application. This is, again, a sample application from my book. But what it does, I'm going to launch it in the simulator, is it aggregates some blog feeds from the Wintellect website. So I've got my C# image, a couple other blogs, they're pulled in great. So here it is, we've got some tiles, we can scroll out, see the different blogs, so on and so forth. Well, on this screen, it's pretty straightforward. I've got different types of blogs that I can scan through. And so if I rotate the tablet, which I'm doing right now, pretty much what's going to change is I just get a higher stack of tiles. So you can see now I've got 4 rows. I'm still scrolling the same way, but it's taking advantage of that new orientation. However, let's go ahead and rotate it back. And now let's drop down into a specific item. So let's take compressing data in Windows 8 Metro applications. So you can see I've got this side-by-side. I can scroll from left to right to go through the article. And then I've got these tabs that appear. So if I was using touch, I could swipe between articles. With the tabs, I can tap on a tab, and basically that'll jump directly between articles. Now what happens here if I rotate? So we'll go ahead and rotate to a portrait mode. You can see the viewport changes, so it's taking advantage once again of that vertical space that it has. And then I can scroll across, and then I get that same experience, but it's repositioning itself so that I can read top to bottom, and I get a full column within one of these views, and then I can scroll to the second column, and so I slide here, and the columns snap into place. That's built-in functionality. I didn't have to code for it, so that I can easily read it and navigate. So let's go back to, let's see, we'll go, let's go this way. So we're going to go back to a landscape mode. Now I've got upside down, but it's reoriented itself once again. And let's take a look at this main page again, because on this main page, we also have a mode called a snap mode. What snap allows me to do is, let's say I went into my weather application. Well, now I can snap it, and that allows me to go side by side with another application. You can see it's changed the way that you view it based on that orientation. So let's go back into the Wintellect application. And let's go ahead and move it to a snap mode. And what you'll see is it's reoriented itself, so it's very easy to scroll up and down to find these within the narrow snap space. And then if I actually click on an article, the article presents itself vertically. And so it's, again, repositioning itself based on the orientation that we need. So let's go ahead and stop that. So another feature is the picture password. And I know some people have looked at this and said, is it secure? Is it not secure? Can you look at fingerprints on the surface? So I'm not going to get into all the nuances of how secure it is. I can say I use it, and I find it to be a powerful feature. Basically, being able to tap and do basically a combination of gestures. So it's a swirl or a slash or a tap will get you onto your tablet. Very convenient when you're at cruising altitude in the airplane. Whip out the tablet. No need to grab an external keyboard. Touch, 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 and you're in. The sensor support that's native to the Metro platform is phenomenal. So there's the ambient light sensor. This is a great feature for basically honoring the battery life of the device that you're running on. So if you're in a darker room, you don't need to be as bright, so on and so forth. We've got the screen rotation and orientation that I demonstrated. There's an accelerometer, and for the devices that have the hardware available, that will give the influence of gravity. There's a compass, so what is north, south, east, west. True north and magnetic north are typically supported. A gyrometer, or maybe a gyrometer, I don't know. I haven't got the correct pronunciation, but that provides angular velocity, so how fast am I twisting in an axis. And then the inclinometer, but for those of you familiar with pitch, roll, and yaw, that's going to give our angular representation. So when you see these games, for example, you've got the traditional maze game or maybe a pinball game where you can move the tablet to influence the object. These are all the different sensors that can come together, identify shakes, identify orientation, etc. And then we've got this location, and the location platform is interesting because in addition to GPS support, where the hardware is there, there's also algorithms that the device can use depending on your IP address, Wi-Fi signals, etc., that coalesce to a general location. And you've got a very generic API that without knowing if there's GPS or if it's using another method, you can query that, get the general location, and also know how much accuracy that location is providing. So this is a key piece, and this belongs in the Metro side because there is support for ARM devices. And these are low voltage, low power devices that allow for a significantly reduced form factor. They don't have to have fans built in, for example, to cool the processor. Now there's a special build of Windows for this, but Metro applications will work as is, and by that I mean you can compile them to target the environment, but I don't have to change any code to get my Metro application to run on that ARM device. However, what's significant is my native applications right now are not going to just simply build to the ARM level. So if I'm building Metro, I'm fine. But if I'm building to that desktop, that blue stack, then it's not going to happen directly. Now, the ARM machines are going to support these special desktop versions of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc., and they will have integration with that system, but these are, again, special builds. They're not the typical Office builds. And then there's limited support for the desktop stack. So my understanding of this ARM version is there is a CLR, a .NET framework running to support the Metro apps that use that, but there's a limited framework for supporting applications that are outside of that Metro sandbox. There's significant features of accessibility. I posted about one right before this talk that was talking about the narrator. So there's a built-in narrator screen reader. When you set up accessibility, this will enable the Slate or whatever device you're using to read the text from the screen. It supports multiple languages and voices and has improved performance on Windows 8. There's also UI automation built in. This is very key. What UI automation does is it provides a standard way. It's a platform in Windows. Provides a standard way to interact with controls on the screen. And then third-party software that does things like reading back or providing other accessibility features can use that UI automation platform to understand what's on the screen and how to interact with it. And an example might be it can interface with the controls, read the options to the user, take a voice recognition, and then instruct that control to act as if it was clicked or a drop-down item was selected. Templates for applications have this built in right out of the box. Controls have it built in, and it supports things like the magnifier, etc. Finally, we've got this Microsoft account in Skydrive. And the Microsoft account is what most people are used to as Windows Live. It provides an integrated sign-in. I know I use it. And it allows me to roam my settings, desktop backgrounds, etc. Like that Commodore 64 background I showed, I set that on my, I believe, my laptop boot. And within a few minutes, when I logged into my Slate, I had the same background because it synchronizes through the cloud automatically using my account. Skydrive will appear as an option in your file picker. So it's just as simple as, hey, you want to grab a file? Go ahead and navigate your local storage as well as go into Skydrive. Pull it out and use that. And then you can transfer data to and from the cloud. So it's literally just another storage option to your applications. And then there's an SDK that you can use to integrate and be aware of the fact that the user signed in and take advantage of ways to synchronize settings and code and grab information, etc. So I wanted to show two more features, and then we'll wrap up on the Metro side. And then, of course, we need to announce our winner for the virtual training session. The first is this integrated search. This is definitely key. And what I want to be clear is, even though I'm talking about this in the Metro side, I can just as easily do it from the desktop. And to show that, what I'm going to do is escape out, pull up a desktop folder. Now, what I want to do is go back to that system dialog, where I showed you the specs for my machine. So I know that the dialog is system something, but I'm not sure what. So let's go ahead and use search to get to that. So I'm going to tap the Windows key, start typing system, and hit enter, and we'll see what happens. And there we go. We've gone straight into the application. That is the integrated search experience. And let me do this a little bit more slowly. So from the desktop, I can hit the Windows key, and I can start typing. And when I start typing, I immediately go into the default search, which is this apps search. Let's do something else, and I demoed this in my last talk, but let's use the word chicken. You'll see there's no apps or settings with chicken. If I go into settings and do touch, I certainly have quite a few touch settings. So this is just seamlessly integrated across the board. But if we go back to chicken and we click on files, what we're going to find is files that have the word chicken in them somewhere. So I've got all files, documents, other types, etc. We can go into Internet Explorer, and we're automatically going to do a search for chicken. And if we go to dictionary.com, for example, we get the definition of chicken. So this is a operating system level feature that not only searches in files, settings, and applications for you, so it makes it very easy to quickly jump into any application you want from anywhere on the system. And again, I'm just going to show that demonstration because I like to drive home that point of how powerful it is. Let's go back to the desktop and let's pull up Notepad. Oh, that's some release notes. I'm not sure. WCF data services, so it wasn't the first item on the list. Let's try that again. Start screen, note, pad, enter, and we're in it. So based on the applications you have installed, you may need to type more or less, but boom, you're right into what you're searching for. So the other piece to demo is this integrated sharing. And integrated sharing is, again, a Metro feature that allows seamless integration between applications. As an example, let's say I wanted to share the WCF Data Services blog on Twitter. What I can do is pull out my charm. This is the charm bar here. I can click on share. Now I've got several options. One of those options is my Twitter client. So I'll tap the Twitter client. And you can see I've got a tweet all ready to go, the name of the site, and the URL, and I can basically type it, click send tweet, good to go. Any type of source that supports this is going to be able to integrate with this application. And just to show that, let's go back to the start screen, jump into the Wintellect application, and let's go into the Surface tablet post. So that's a nice post that I want to share. Again, I'll pull up the charm bar, do a share, and now you can see right there, got the Metro twit. Now, in this case, it's actually pulled in a lot more content, so it's obviously pulling in the text portion, but it's pulled over the article from what I'm sharing. If I come back and I say mail, let's go ahead and click into that. You're going to see it actually loads a preview of the site because I'm sharing the hyperlink to the site, gives me a title and gives me a link. And then the most interesting one I like to show, so we can go into browse the images here, and I'm going to go ahead and share this image with a game called Puzzle Touch. Now, Puzzle Touch, I guarantee, knew nothing about my Wintellect application. Nonetheless, I can pick it, do an easy puzzle, and it says my puzzle's ready. So if we bounce back out and we find the Puzzle Touch application, which I scrolled to it there, I could have easily searched for it as well. Now I've got an option of a puzzle that has that image that I pulled from the site. So this is a very interesting feature. You can see this, that two applications actually totally unaware of each other were able to integrate and share this image that was pulled off the web. So let's do a quick recap. What we talked about today was this unique dual personality. You learned about the blue and the green stack, and these were used more often, I think, in the early days, and now I hear them referred to more frequently, and I'm sure Microsoft may want to reference these as well as basically the desktop and the Metro stack. But you saw very specific features, improvements, and functionality on both of those stacks that are unique to Windows 8. Let's go ahead and dismiss that notification. And basically, again, what I hope you came away with was the notion that this isn't just a Windows 7 with some lipstick on it for a touch interface. This is a revamped operating system on both the touch-friendly and the traditional desktop sides. So what I need to do now is hear back from our sponsors and see if they've picked a winner, and I will announce that here when I get a chance.
I'm just trying to get the young guy here to reply to me.
Okay.
He's not replying yet.
Okay. What about me?
Not you.
I was going to say, you never called me young before.
Can I get Jeff Albrecht just to check out his chat window, please? Jeff Albrecht, can you please check your chat window?
Well, we'll give that a second while he's sorting that out. And I've got the email up here that we want the winner to email to get the details for the virtual seminar. Has that been confirmed?
Yeah, it's been confirmed. Yeah, I got a hold of him now.
Jeff Albrecht?
Yes.
All right. Well, congratulations, Jeff. Again, the email that you see on the screen is the email you want to send off to and get the details for the virtual webinar. I've also got a few links I want to review, and then I see some questions coming up, and I'm happy to answer questions here in the 10, 12 minutes we have left. So the slide deck that you're looking at can be downloaded from the link at Wintellect.com. There's a recap for the Wintellect events. I told you about a library of icons that SyncFusion was giving away, and that bit.ly shortcut will take you straight to the screen where you can download those icons. And then finally, once again, for the book I'm working on, that is the link you can use to not only follow details of the book, I want to make that clear, I also post all of the pertinent Windows 8 news I come across to that page. All right, let's take some questions here.
Just a quick one, Jeremy. Do you have the Q&A window open?
I do. Do I need to close it?
Yeah, just close it, please. It's covering the email address.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Now we're back to normal.
There you go.
I hope. Here, let me bounce back there. How's that?
There we go. Thank you very much.
Looks good.
I'll just say congratulations to Jeff for winning the Wintellect virtual training valued at $499. I hope you enjoy it, Jeff. And thank you to Wintellect for putting that prize up. Hang on, he's not responding again. Okay. I will try to get hold of him by email afterwards if I've lost him.
Sounds good.
Thank you. You can do a Q&A now. Sorry.
All right. You want to let me know what questions are popping up, or I can pop it open either way. Works for me.
You can pop it up and have a look if you want to, mate.
All right. I see two questions right now, so I'm going to tackle them. The first question I saw was about a Windows 8 emulator. Currently, the only way to run and debug and troubleshoot Windows 8 applications is on a Windows 8 build. So the emulator is built in when you install Visual Studio 2012 on a Windows 8 device, but the way the emulator works is it really does sort of a remote desktop connection back to the device itself. So it provides that simulator that I showed you, so you can navigate, you can take screenshots, you can emulate touch, you can rotate, but that's only going to work on Windows 8 itself. You cannot develop currently Windows 8 applications on a Windows 7, XP, or other type of device. So that's number one. Second question I see is a question about an upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 8. And I can tell you that experience is being revamped, right? So we're not at a release level right now for Windows 8. I can tell you that the experience I had migrating to Windows 8 was straightforward, but there wasn't an in-place upgrade. So I can't speak to that experience yet, but I know Microsoft's working on it. And if past operating systems are any indicator, not only have they offered that it's an inexpensive upgrade, I think it's $15 if you purchase a PC now to go to Windows 8 Pro, but they always make it as straightforward of a process as possible. And you'll find that the Windows 8 upgrade should also, I imagine, go a lot more quickly than previous. I know the install from scratch was lightning fast for me. Okay, so the next question I see is there only one version for Windows 8 Hands-On Labs? So my understanding is they have updated the Windows 8 Hands-On Labs for the release preview. I don't know if they're going through any final cycles before they make it public. I don't have public links, but I do know that effort has been made and established. So you should see those labs coming out for the release preview. Performance graphs looked real nice. I can get at those stats from code too, just as in current versions. So that story is going to be a little unique. In a desktop application, you can get to those performance counters and metrics. In the Metro application, it's going to be a little bit different, and you do have performance indicators, but it's a different surface area. So I can't speak as directly to it, but it's going to be a good place for me to go do my homework and drill into after this talk, because the performance chapter is actually one of the ones that we're looking at for releasing to the store. So I should have some better info for that. On which Windows 8 version will be Windows to Go? That's going to be the top level SKU, the enterprise version. So the entry-level versions, the Pro version, none of those will support it. It is an enterprise feature, and it'll be supported by the highest SKU level. Are there any other questions related to Windows 8 and the dual personality that you learned about today? Any creative questions not related? No, I'm kidding. But,
I think you've frightened them all away, Jeremy. Oh, there's one.
So.
Oh, hang on. Ben, type your question into the Q&A. Don't put your hand up. Yep, there we go. Thanks.
Any hardware? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, me either. Do you want to elaborate on that, Ben?
How about, very good. That's a good question. Integration with Kinect Controller. So here's the good news with Windows 8. Windows 8 has a very specific path. And if you search on the developer site, that's dev.windows.com, that's the developer site, and you search for the devices and hardware and so forth, what you're going to find is that there is very specific guidance to interfacing with different types of devices. So that's something that is native to the experience. There is a Kinect Sdk. The story on the Kinect Sdk is it's not officially supported on Windows 8, but there is a beta version out there that, yes, you can start having a lot of fun with your Kinect on a Windows 8 machine. Is there a list of deprecated APIs anywhere? That's a good question. I am not aware of that list, but I imagine it may exist either publicly or hidden on someone's hard drive deep within the vaults of Microsoft. Since Windows Runtime is going to be part of the Windows Phone 8 release, will be part of the Xbox technology stack in the future as well. Well, I can say one thing, and that's we've noticed that Metro as a design feature is converging on all these different platforms. We can also see there's a very strong direction to converge technology and to have similar components, runtimes, etc. So while I am not aware of any official word of WinRT coming on Xbox, I think it's a logical evolution based on what we've seen so far. And then my favorite question right here, I love this one. Is there a database available for Windows Metro? So I'll answer that in two pieces. Yes, there is one. It's not a straightforward database. If you take a look and you can search for Windows 8 SQLite, you'll see instructions on how to build a version of SQLite that works for Windows Metro. The second part to that is Windows Metro is similar enough to the Silverlight platform that I built the Sterling database for, that there is a possibility we'll bring that to the Metro platform, and that's a question of time and materials. So it's something I'm looking at very seriously in the August-September timeframe. And Peter Shaw's favorite database is SQLite. My understanding is it's going to be the standard API for the minified portable build that you have for that, but by no means an expert. I have not been doing much with it. I've been doing more serialization to local storage. So in Windows 8, you've got direct access to storage, and you can take objects and serialize them just like we're used to and use that for cache and local database. Yes, let me move my Q&A somewhere else where we won't obliterate the slide deck. How's that?
Ben, if you can type your question in full so that Jeremy can read it, and then he can actually answer your question for you. We don't use the hand system when we do meetings on live meeting because it means that everybody needs to have a microphone. Sorry, Jeremy, it's all yours again, mate.
Oh, that's fine. So I've got XAML is required for Win8 programming, or HTML5 will do. That's a very good question. So you've got two choices for your rendering engine. XAML is one of them, and HTML5 is the other one. With the XAML, you have a choice of using managed code with C# or VB.NET, or unmanaged code with C++. So you've got those language options with XAML. If you choose to go with HTML5, the language is JavaScript. So there's not, for example, a combination of HTML5 and C#, for example. But you can use XAML, or you can use HTML5 to develop your Metro applications. And I believe I have a couple minutes. I can answer one more question. Well, we've got two, so let me answer these two questions, and then I'm going to have to wrap up here. When is the next version of Office going to be available? I'm assuming fairly soon because they just released the preview of the tools, but I don't have any official word on when that go-live date for the actual application is going to be. I think it is telling that the Word, PowerPoint, etc. all say 2013 in their titles. How much work is it to convert Silverlight code? That is a loaded question. It's the last one I'll answer, and then I've got to wrap up. But I say it's loaded because there's a lot of different ways that Silverlight applications can be built and organized. So if you've built your Silverlight applications following a clean separation of concern, something like a view model pattern, and isolation using interfaces and so forth, it's actually a lot less work to convert it, because a lot of that code can move over to Metro as is, and what you'll be dealing with is just a few platform-specific nuances. That's made even easier if your Silverlight code takes advantage of the portable class library. So that's a library that allows you to build assemblies that run as is without modification on different platforms, including Metro and Silverlight. Now, when we talk about a Silverlight application that maybe has really heavy code behind and uses a lot of very specific Silverlight features and functionality, that's going to be a much more difficult experience. And if you have a lot of customizations in your XAML, for example, that's also going to be a more difficult port. But the key here is to remember that Metro does have different design guidelines, and so one of the keys for porting your applications is your UI is likely going to change significantly anyway, so that you can adhere to those guidelines. And then there's a question that sort of ties into this, and that's about porting existing WPF, and it's the exact same answer. It depends on the extent to which the code is decoupled, and it's not going to be a direct port. It's going to take some effort, and the amount of effort will depend on how isolated your feature sets are, so that you can identify things that map to Windows 8 versus things that need to be changed or updated. And that's all I've got time for.
Excellent. Well, Jeremy, I know that you have to run off as you're flying out fairly shortly. I want to say thank you very much for yet another quite interesting presentation. And as usual, I want to make sure that we get you back again in the future, because we definitely enjoy having you around here.
Well, thank you, sir. I always have fun. Like I said, last one was fun, this one was too. And I appreciate everyone who took time out of their day-to-day to jump online and participate.
Fantastic. And thanks to Wintellect for helping to organize the LIDNUG Wintellect series.
You're welcome.